Hello all YouTubers, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back into this weather presentation for May 12th, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that you please do subscribe if you are not already. It really does help support my channel. And please also, and this applies to every single one of you, please watch the whole video. You'd be surprised how much it really does help me grow my channel. So please consider subscribing and watching the whole video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about a tropical disturbance in the Atlantic that actually has a 50% chance of development. And I've been sort of watching this, and if you watch my two videos that I did on the tropical disturbance that was hitting Florida, coming from the Gulf, sort of in from this direction. If you watch those two videos, you would have saw that I was sort of watching this, but I kind of wanted to save it for another video, see if it got more attention from National Hurricane Center, and it did. All right, this does have a 50% chance of development, and an area of low pressure is going to develop. Environmental conditions will be conducive for a subsystem to acquire some subtropical characteristics, maybe even tropical characteristics, depending on how all the factors line up. But this is your zone right here, moving out of the Bahamas, moving like northeastward, probably missing land, but that doesn't mean that the land will not feel any impacts. Matter of fact, let's look. All right, so I kind of gave it a 40 to 60% chance of development because we are waiting. Well, in 2 hours there'll be another update from the National Hurricane Center, but this video is not going to be 2 hours long. But nonetheless, there still will be coastal impacts and development chance. Again, I gave it about a 40 to 60% chance in that area shaded in orange, within an orange circle. And I am going to say potential tropical cyclone Arthur just because it does have a good possibility to become a potential subtropical or tropical storm. A decent possibility. All right, high surf, gusty winds, some rainfall potentially, some heavy rainfall, and some rip currents. All in that yellow region potentially. I think when you get farther north towards South Carolina, North Carolina, I think it's going to be less of a rainfall threat and more of just a coastal threat. I think if you get any rainfall, it's just going to be pretty much Florida. I think Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina will just have the surf, the winds, and the rip currents. But the Florida has all those plus the rainfall. So some rainfall most likely be for Florida, but still anywhere shading that yellow region could still have all four impacts listed, and it will be a low on the impact scale. But nonetheless, this can still be a threat. All right, and ocean temperature anomalies have been building to the east of where the storm is expected to form. All right, eventually a low pressure forms somewhere in here and sort of track this way. At first, they'll be in some warmer ocean anomalies. Then once it gets over here, off the coast of same latitude as like Georgia, Carolinas, not so much. All right, but if it somehow does carry off to the east, which it most likely will not, but if it does somehow move into those even warmer than average waters, that could be a sign of increased development. But since there's a high pressure sitting in the midst here, and you'll see that in the models as well, that'll kind of be steering the storm that way and also pumping in the moisture into Florida potentially. So, right, I don't think the rainfall will be as much though for Florida just because the storm is kind of tracking a little bit farther east. But still, we do have anywhere south of that black line that I just drew out, 80 degrees Fahrenheit plus those ocean temperatures. All right, so the storm won't be lasting in 80-degree waters for that long, which is why I think that it could acquire subtropical characteristics, where it's kind of like half of it's like it's like half tropical, and it's half just like a regular coastal low, kind of like half man half horse kind of situation here. But still, like if this storm was forming near the Yucatan down here and then moving through Cuba, and then it'd be a different story because obviously be through a lot warmer waters. But ocean temperatures aren't the only thing playing into this. Obviously, there's also factors such as wind shear and dry air, and we will be going over those as well. All right, so how is this kind of forming? Well, we do have those high pressures. Those will be sliding to the east because if those high pressures did stay there, the storm would just never move, stay there forever. It's already on a stalled front. All right, this high pressure sitting there is not going to help matters. All right, eventually those highs will cook off to the east. All right, eventually because of this stalled front, we have increased cloud cover. Eventually, a low is going to form here and sort of move on to the north because the high pressure is going to steer the flow that way. All right, we do actually have a low. All right, It's not a tropical depression. I don't know why. Sometimes they classify regular low pressures as depressions, but no. Okay, this is just a regular old low pressure system. The region that I expected to come out of is actually right here. All right, that's not the low up to the top right of your screen, but rather where the front is, even more concentrated cloudiness here. So eventually, over the next couple days, few days, that storm is going to start rising from the south. Matter of fact, if you go to the global tropics hazards, you can find us on trackthetropics.com. And as a matter of fact, they recently just added that little red region, encompassing the green region right there. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the tropical probability is moderate. So if we go down here and look at the key, sorry about that, let's go down and look at the key here. And I'm getting there. And it is a moderate threat. Okay, development of a tropical cyclone, whether that be a depression, a tropical depression, or greater strength, could be a tropical storm. But the probability of that is a moderate. All right, obviously, if it was shaded fully in red, that would mean it'd be a high probability. But still, it does have a moderate probability, and this was just recognized by the NHC. Right, so some we're going to have to be watching right there, since the global tropics hazards from the Climate Prediction Center has now pointed out. And the heat, tropical cyclone heat, cyclonic heat, Caribbean, we've had a lot of it. It's been really growing over the past 7 days. We will have some tropical cyclonic heat, although once it makes it out of the Bahamas, there's just really nothing there. So there's not going to be much heat with this, which is why this is going to be probably more of a subtropical storm, but it is still possible. All right, let's get into the modeling now. All right, so for the GFS model, let's time this out here. And you can see there it is. Low pressure forms. GFS was definitely taking it farther east. I remember the Euro and the Canadian model kind of take a little bit farther west. We will see. But notice how the low is kind of right on top of the area of heaviest rainfall. It's kind of misplaced. All right, and who knows? That could change because look at this. 1008, that low gets a little bit better position, but even more heavier rain. But the storm itself, if you look at the Euro model from earlier today, the wind barrier was pretty huge. All right, so this is going to have a big wind field, as you would call it. All right, but the isobars will definitely deepen. We're talking about 1005 millibars of pressure now. Even though the rainfall has started weakening, we still have that low pressure with that little rain shield that is forming. And again, that high pressure is going to help push it this way. At least try to keep it closer to the coast without, and then eventually it's going to suck it out east. The high pressure kind of prevents it from going this way, but I think it's still going to track up this way. Because the high pressure sort of has a flow. It comes out if you're on the south side of it, the storm tends to move west. And once you get on that western side of that high, the storm can kind of move northward and then out to the east. And that's what we're going to see here. The pressure does continue to drop. All right, but by this point, 1002, this is just becoming wrapped in it's going to be a regular low pressure system at this point. It's going to get wrapped up with a jet stream and the cold front. So this really wouldn't be tropical at that point, possibly a subtropical storm. Sometimes these coastal lows can grow into a big, this could grow into a hurricane, like an extra tropical cyclone, but it'll have hurricane force winds. It's kind of like what happened with Hurricane Sandy when it made landfall. Technically, I mean, you could debate whether it was a Category 1 when it made landfall in Jersey. It was a Category 1, but I believe that it was classified as extra tropical just as it made landfall, but it still was pretty organized for an extra tropical cyclone, and it had some winds of over 80 miles an hour. Okay, but this could be one of these storms that it is tropical for a little bit, all right, and then eventually just becomes extra tropical, a little bit disorganized, but it has hurricane force winds. So something we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on. And let's take a look at the precipitable water. You say not too bad. All right, the precipitable water, usually with some of these tropical systems, we see some blues higher up on the totem pole. We don't really see much of that. We do see some darker greens, however, and that is indicating that we do have a decent moisture source with the system. All right, and the moisture will continue to fade, actually, once the storm moves up to the north. Kind of gets encompassed more in that dry air. The dry air sort of filtering right into that system there. And that's going to be the dry air part of this discussion we'll be talking about that could potentially hinder the development, especially as it moves far to the north. Let's look at the tropical cyclonic vortices, all right? You see it is pretty, I mean, we do have some deeper reds, definitely higher up on the totem pole, 35 to 45. All right, but and another storm towards Texas, and the Canadian model was trying to develop that for some reason, and we'll see if it still does. All right, but there it is, and as a matter of fact, we do have an 18 Z model run. So let's take a look at that. And there we go. So the 18Z model run does actually now bring a little bit farther west and then eventually pushing it farther east again. All right. So there it is, moving west and eventually kicking off to the east. Now let's actually go back to the MSLP as we're getting this 18Z data in. As I said before, right there kind of kicks off to the west and then moves to the east again. All right, here is the surface winds. Let's take a look at, does it become a tropical system? So the reason I didn't want to, if I zoomed in farther, because I zoomed out this far kind of for a reason. Because if I zoomed in on it and then the wind kind of changes. So when you're zoomed out this way, the green represents winds of 34 knots or greater, which is exactly right on the line for tropical development. So I figured that'd be easier for me to analyze, because if I zoomed in farther and then the green would represent winds of 20 knots all of a sudden, and then it kind of changes. So I'll kind of show you guys real quick. So see how the green means 34 knots plus? All right, well, if I go to regions and I go to southeast now, notice how that changes. Notice how it says 20 knots now for green. And all this area is all of a sudden now shaded in green. So I figured it would be easier for me to detect the tropical system if I was zoomed out to the Western Atlantic. All right. If you guys can't see, I'll try to zoom in a little bit, but I don't want to zoom in too much because I want to be able to adjust everything. So, tropical system, yes. I mean, here's your tropical storm force winds. There's a little bit of green. It might be hard for you to see around that northwest side. But again, that's a little lopsided, though. It's usually on the eastern side. So this could be, again, a subtropical storm. And it does get at its strongest point. It looks like we see the most amount of greens and yellows right here on the northwestern side. And this is Sunday afternoon, and then the green, we start to lose some of that green. Then it really fires up again once it becomes non-tropical and it kind of gets caught up in that jet stream there. So that is the GFS model winds. Let's take a look at the wind shear now. All right, let's go to the latest model run, and let's go. All right, so as we go to the wind shear here, so sometimes these storms, what they can do is they can build a wall to block out some of the dry air and some of the wind shear. Now that usually happens more so once it gets to a hurricane. All right, the system, and also it can happen when a storm is larger in size. So, like if it's a tropical storm and if it's smaller, sometimes it's easier for the system to kind of get impacted by those winds and by the dry air. All right, so again, let's look at the storm and kind of see if it can block out the wind shear, and sure enough, it does. Okay, but we're kind of having some of the shear kind of deflecting the storm apart. And again, it's May. It's a little early, but the season does tend to start out pretty early. It's pretty much happened for the past 4 years. We've had, or 3, I should say, I think. 17, 18, 19. All hurricane seasons there that had early season starts, and it could have been 16 as well. I don't think so. So this would make it at least a 4th hurricane season if this does form into something subtropical or tropical, that would be starting early. And this would be called Arthur, of course, as you might have saw in the title and the thumbnail. All right, if it did form. And let's look at the global model now. Again, there's your storm right there, and also they got a really decent spin, so curly Q right there off towards Texas. They tried to develop that as well. Why, I don't know. And then there it is. It's kind of moving a little bit farther west, though. So take a look at the global model, and they sort of, okay, here's your little curly Q, and more so impacting Cape Hatteras with not only some high surf and winds and rip currents that I showed you from before, but also some potential rainfall that we're going to be watching as well. All right, and then that moves up close, kind of a close call there for the Mid-Atlantic, possibly. All right, let's look at their sort of precipitable water. So again, look at that high pressure, right? Dry around it, but that moisture source gets turned on, all right, and kind of kind of shoved up the Gulf of Mexico onto land, and therefore, once that moisture source gets turned on, that storm kind of gets turned on, all right, then it kind of moves up to the north. Even though it doesn't really express any blues, there's the area of dark green is a lot more expansive. All right, so it's a huge area of green here. I mean, the moisture source for the storm is just, splendid, spectacular. All right, but that high pressure, that other system, a little bit dry air tries to get dragged into it. Here, not so much. We're not really seeing too much dry air being dragged into this one. at least according to the global model, and then it kind of kicks off to the east. In terms of timing, probably around Saturday morning through Saturday afternoon for Florida, up to Carolina coast, possibly. All right, end of the weekend and early next week. Let's take a look at the cyclonic vortices here. All right, here's a deep low center that kind of forms. Here's your little area of spin. All right, and your storm itself is it's very large. All right, it's a very large area of wind, a possible large moisture shield, not necessarily a big rain shield, but the area of moisture with it is definitely expansive. All right, and then it kind of moves up the Carolina coast through the day Monday. All right, we'll see if it impacts the Mid-Atlantic, probably some rough surf for them as well, but that's a little bit farther out in time. Does the GEM model predict her, or at least tropical storm conditions? Yes, they do actually. All right, it's going to be very, very hard to see us because the little wind flags kind of getting in the way, but it's right there. There's a little area of green. It's very hard to see. All right, but it is there, trust me, and that is where a brief tropical storm might develop. Otherwise, probably just a strong subtropical or tropical depression for them. In the storm, I mean, like, we're only talking about dark blues, which means 30 to 35 mile an hour winds after that. So you might not even notice. Like, you might be tuning in, tropical storm, 2 hours later, tropical depression. So we'll see. And because this could be a very short-lived system. Even though the wind field does appear to be very large, the storm itself won't be that large, right? So here is the wind shear, and again, it does kind of get blocked off by some of the shear. Okay, some of the shear tries to avoid it, but again, that could just be because they're trying to point out the system. There could still be wind shear going through it, and then here it is. Really, we're starting to see that wind shear really tear apart the system as we head through Sunday. So this might only have a couple of days to get its act together, because once it moves to the Carolinas, it gets picked up by that jet stream, and even though they will enhance the winds, that's going to erase its tropical existence. So it's kind of like it's giving the jet stream's kind of giving the storm an offer. It's like, I'll strengthen you, I'll give you more power, I'll give you more wind power, but you're going to have to erase that tropical existence. So the storm's going to have to make that decision. All right. Let's look at the NAM model now. Now NAM model, I had no choice. I had to zoom into the southeast. Okay, there's no Atlantic zoom maps with the NAM model. I had no choice there. Let me just make sure we are on the run the latest run, and there's just, I mean, as far as the NAM goes, your surface low develops right on 84 hours here. Here's your rainfall up to the east, and 1,011 millibars of pressure. That is a decent storm. Probably having some 30 mile an hour winds, 25 mile an hour winds. They'll eventually move north, but again, that's how far out the NAM model goes. They do surprise me. I didn't think they provide a cyclonic vortice map. They actually do, and I do remember using it. But it's definitely been a while because obviously, you know, last time we saw hurricanes was September, October. But there's your low center right there, a little spin area. And we definitely do have some clusters of thunderstorms and some energy in the atmosphere that can really get those storms going. Does the NAM model make it a tropical storm? And again, don't see the green and be like, oh, tropical storm. Like I said before, now there has to be orange. It has to be like a medium or dark orange for it to be a tropical storm now, because we're zoomed in closer. Like I said, that's why I kind of don't like zooming in here, because green is a lot easier to tell. And no, it does not make it a tropical storm. There are some areas of stronger winds, some lighter greens, up to about 28 knots, which is just over 30 miles an hour. So like I said, 25, 30 mile an hour winds, but like I said, it's still early. That's as far as the NAM goes. I can't take it any farther than that, but the NAM will continue to give us updates. All right, wrapping up our models here, let's go European style, right here, European model. All right, and actually, you know what, I might have to zoom out because I have to move the arrows along. It's not like just the tropical tidbits where you can just click the arrow on your keyboard. It's kind of different. All right, so European model, and here we go. 1,011 millibars of pressure. It is a decently strong storm. This is by Saturday morning. It's starting to get its act together. Some heavy rain, okay, accompanying the central low pressure. There's your little wave there coming out of Texas, but probably not going to be tropical, but we'll have to watch it as well. And notice how the isobars, the pressure only drops by about 3 millibars, but the isobars, I can definitely notice them starting to tighten a little bit, starting to pack closer together. All right, and then 10:04, it kind of just sits there. The storm just kind of sits there. 1,004 millibars of pressure at this point. And we are on the, okay, good. We're on the latest model run. I was expecting it to be because I remember setting it up. But, and then the storm moves off to the east, okay? But why are we talking about it possibly not developing? I mean, we got the you said how it can sometimes block out the shear. That's the thing though. The ocean temperatures are going to be kind of on the lower side. Um, on its beginning life, in its beginning stages, as it's merging out of the Bahamas, we have waters of 80, 82 degrees, not bad. Definitely conducive conditions, some moderate conditions. Then once it lifts out of the Bahamas, though, the water in this region is a little bit cooler. Not necessarily cooler than average, but it's down lower into the 70s. And that's just about average for this time of year, possibly a little bit lower than that. But that's going to kind of reduce the storm development. Does the European model indicate tropical system? So far, not yet. I only see 28 knots of wind. Like I said, once those isobars get a little bit closer together, they used to be shown like 34 knots. I was seeing on a couple of their model runs. Now I'm starting to pick up 30 knots. All right. European model, most likely not. All right. Until it gets out here, I saw 34 right here. There it is. Let me actually move my drawing tool out of the way. And there it is, right. Let me find it again. It's right around here. Yep, 34. So, again, European model does predict a tropical storm right there. Look on the bottom right of your screen, 34 knots. You kind of have to move it around to sort of find it. But all in all, this does have a decent chance to become at least subtropical depression, tropical depression, and possibly a tropical storm. Kind of like what we saw with the last tropical disturbance. This time it does have a better chance to develop, though, and it's actually recognized by the National Hurricane Center. So, there you go. And lastly, look at the cyclonic vortices real quick. It's a small world, and I'm not going to start with that. But the storm, it's a small, tight, packed area of cyclonic vorticities. But again, that's a small storm, can be more susceptible to shear and a dry air as well. So we'll have to see. Small storms can rapidly grow, and they can also rapidly weaken. So we're going to have to watch this storm system for possible development. I should be keeping updates on it. Hopefully my next video will be very soon, possibly tomorrow, the next day, my 6th Atlantic hurricane season outlook. So please don't forget to stay tuned for that. Obviously, depending on when you're watching this video, it may not be out yet, but it should be coming out 13th or 14th of May, so consider sticking around for that. I am the Weather Dude, signing off. Until next time, thank you guys for watching.